In today's video, I wanted to find out how easy and cheap it would be to play every Pokemon game on the PC. I did this by purchasing a Dell used Office PC. They're cheap, plentiful, and easy to get. But was I able to do this, or did this turn into a nightmare for me? Find out today. So here are the specs of the computer if you're curious. Pretty good for less than 50 bucks. I started off by copying over some games to test, and well, unfortunately, this PC in particular had some unique and interesting quirks to it. It just didn't like a lot of the things that I was doing, a lot of the emulators, and so I had to go and re-download a couple. But after re-downloading, I went ahead and tried a couple ROMs, and the emulator kindly informed me that it was not going to be playing some of these games. So, this means I'm going to have to configure and change a lot of the settings around. And if you are not a tech-savvy person, this would not particularly be a fun time for you. But after I altered a few of the settings and configured things, I was able to get the games to load up. Now you have to understand that this is Visual Boy Advance. It's a pretty basic emulator for all games from Game Boy all the way up to Game Boy Advance. And so the games loaded, they started working just fine. But this does give way to some unique and interesting quirks, as I stated before. For example, I had to reset the entire game if I wanted to change the border. I couldn't just quick save it as it corrupted the border. But once I had tweaked and altered the settings quite a bit, the game loaded up perfectly fine, and I had no issues with that. Now, while I have this battle in the background, I wanted to talk about how I acquired this PC. I have two PCs, one that has a graphics card and one that does not. This is a rescue PC that I was able to locate at Goodwill for $12.99 that required a new power supply. The power supply itself was less than $30, and after I gave it a new power supply and changed the hard drive to an SSD, I'm looking at an investment of about $50. It was fairly cheap and easy to repair, but not all rescue PCs are so easy to repair. So I have this one and an Office PC off of eBay. Moving right along, I wanted to try a couple other games like Pokemon Pinball. Because Pokemon is a turn-based game, I wanted to actually get some action in to show the frames here. Now, the original Game Boy games aren't going to be as taxing on the system itself. It doesn't require a lot of frames per second. So I tried even running a ROM hack that I personally have been working on, and yep, it doesn't seem to have an issue with this. Plays in full color. Pokemon Crystal is running perfectly fine, and animations are crisp. Colors look nice. They pop out really, really well, and it doesn't have an issue whatsoever. No lag, no hangups, no problems. I wanted to try a couple other games, some games that would have some type of fluent animation, and outside of Chikorita looking like a ghost type for some reason, this game also played flawlessly. There was really no issues with it. When you're emulating and you're playing these games, you're not going to get a one-to-one result. You'll get an almost perfect result, especially on the Game Boy end. I wanted to run a couple other games and try most of the Game Boy games. I loaded up Pokemon trading card game, gold, silver, things like that, and with the same results, there was no issues. Finally, I wanted to try the game that really pushed the original Game Boy in terms of Pokemon games, and that was Pokemon Yellow version. This is the one where Pikachu would follow you around and you would have Pikachu as the starter. And yeah, again, the colors are perfectly fine. The animation is fluent for Game Boy standards, and I had no issue playing this whatsoever. So let's upgrade. Let's go to the 16-bit, 32-bit era here right now. And as you can see, the Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green intro is playing perfectly fine. This is a perfectly acceptable experience. We're not getting low FPS, we're not getting stutters, we're not getting random hangups. I'm having a pretty good time playing this game. I could see myself playing through the entirety of all of the Pokemon games I've tested up to this point on this system, and doing some fun stuff while I'm at it. Yeah. Went ahead and loaded up Pokemon Leaf Green as well, just to show that it wasn't just like 1 or 2 games. Then I went ahead and loaded up Emerald, but if Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green are going to work, Emerald's obviously going to work. However, I want to load up the intro scenes. Once again, as I stated before, Pokemon being a turn-based game, it doesn't require a high FPS. Of course, you could play Pokemon with a low FPS because it's a turn-based game, but when you actually have these animation scenes, you want to see some fluent animation. You don't want to see lag, stutter, hang-ups, and things like that. And that this computer is doing perfectly fine, likely due to the SSD inside. A mechanical hard drive likely wouldn't have too much problems either, but the SSD is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. This game runs fluently. Colors are perfectly fine. There's no issues whatsoever. I moved over to a couple other unique, interesting spin-offs, some side games. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Colors look fantastic. Again, I would be very, very happy playing this game. It's a fantastic game. Have you guys ever played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series? One of my favorite Pokemon spin-offs there are. I wanted to try my hand at pinball again. I failed the last time, couldn't even catch a single Pokemon, so I wonder if I'd be able to do much better this time. And it seems that my luck did improve, and I am able to, at the very least, attempt to capture a Pokemon, unlike last time. I think the Game Boy Advanced version is slightly more playable, so if you're interested in Pokemon Pinball, maybe the Gen 1 version isn't the one that you want, and this one would be a little bit more fun. But hey, you know, that's just my own personal opinion. I really enjoy the graphics on this. They pop, the colors are fantastic, and it's a great way to play this game. I went ahead and moved over to the DS, and this particular game, Pokemon Platinum, was just riddled with problems. I had a terrible time. There were a lot of graphical issues, problems that I could see, visual bugs, things like that. It's not that it wasn't playable, just not a good experience for me personally. But overall, I wasn't happy with this particular ROM and this experience. That said, it was only on Platinum, as I didn't have the same issues with games like Pokemon Black and White 2, and any other DS games to follow that. So I'm not sure what's going on with Platinum, but as I said, Gen 5 ran perfectly fine, and to that end, Gen 4, Heart Gold, and Soul Silver did too. I ran a couple other side games like Pokemon Conquest and, again, Mystery Dungeon, the Blue Rescue Team version, which is essentially Red Rescue Team just put on a Nintendo DS cartridge and sold that way. But again, it worked flawlessly and looked fantastic. Then I went ahead and booted up Pokemon Dash, and let me tell you, this game definitely was trying to show off the DS's capabilities and potential with the dual screens. I mean, look at this. This is just fantastic. You see the balloon stretching up from the bottom to the top screen. You see Pikachu coming at you from the top screen, and then you see it down below as if you yourself are looking down. What a fantastic way to implement this. This game was absolutely atrocious to play on the computer. If you happen to have a pad and a pen that you can hook up via USB to your computer, this would probably be a better way to emulate it, as you can emulate the mouse that way. But trying to play this while consistently clicking on the screen, it's definitely not the way this game was intended, and I would not want to play this game this way. So this would be another game I would not suggest playing on here. So far, that's only about 3 Pokemon games out of like 18 that I've tested, so we're doing pretty good. I went ahead and loaded up a couple other games on the DS side to test them out. Pokemon Trozei, I'm not sure how to say it. Nevertheless, I'm also not sure how to play this game. I did really, really bad. I assumed it was like a matching Tetris game, but I guess it wasn't, and I did horribly. I couldn't even get a single match, so yeah. Sorry, guys. Ultimately, I ended up trying to get the GameCube to run on here, and there's going to be a part 2 where I do 3D games exclusively, but this PC in particular did not have the driver support and updates that it needed to run and render. So I tried to manually install them, Visual C++, things like that. Both 64 and x86 failed for the manual install. So again, I have to reiterate, if you're not tech savvy, this may not be the path you would like to take. That said, would I suggest doing this? Well, if you knew that you could get the 3D Pokemon games running and had access to the emulators, it would also be a pretty good way to play the 3D games. But that'll be in another video. As you can see, the prices for these PCs are pretty low. I would not pay over $70 for a PC, especially if it didn't have a graphics card, because I was running on integrated graphics with very, very basic driver support, which meant I wasn't able to boot up games past the DS. And though it sounds crazy, the DS can push systems like this if you don't have a system with good SSD support, RAM, and a nice CPU. Yeah, believe it or not, emulating the DS can tax systems to the point where you wouldn't even want to play those games. So, I would advise you, if you were going to pick up a system, that it have 1, an SSD, 2, 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, and 3, a good quad-core processor at minimum. And then 4, if you're looking to play 3D Pokemon games, a graphics card as well. Overall, I was pretty satisfied with what I was able to do with this rescue PC, but it does have some unique and interesting quirks that the PC that I bought off of eBay didn't. And the PC I bought off of eBay will be the one I will be using in the next video that I'll be testing all of the 3D Pokemon games. That's the 3DS, GameCube, Wii, Wii U, and I'll even try to play the Switch as well on it. It has a GTX 1030 in it, and it has proper driver and graphics support. So we'll see if I can get those running, and we'll do kind of a comparison here for an integrated PC versus a PC that cost me roughly $100 with the graphics card that I put into it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you emulate Pokemon games and you play them, or you have the originals. And before anybody gets on me, I own all of the Pokemon games that I showed today. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I hope this video helped you in some way, shape, or form. Please leave me a like, share the video, and tell me, have you ever played any of these games, and would you be willing to experience these games through emulation? Or would you like to play them on the original hardware instead? I've been PokeStuff, and thanks for taking the time out to check this video out.